All right, we're about to start Restart Channel 3 podcast, an idea that we started about a year ago with the Admiral Rick Heron, which will be here with us in about a minute. In the meantime, please do not disconnect because we are about to start with this Channel 3 podcast, and we're going to talk about very interesting things, very things that you need to hear. And I guarantee you're going to have a great time listening to us, and because we're going to have a great discussion, not discussion, but a great talk among friends. So please be in tune. How about that? Hey, Rick, how are you?
Super duper.
What about this super intros?
That was amazing.
I mean, it's worth it because we're gonna talk about we planned this for a year. We have been having this idea for more than a year, and I guess we worth it, right?
Yeah.
So how are you?
It just can't get any better than this, man.
I remember when last time we talked about we were I believe Donald Trump was about to open his new campaign, his second campaign, and we talk about very interesting stuff. And our podcast was about to get his new name, and now the name is Channel 3. And I want you to tell the audience why is called the Channel 3.
Well, I used to sell appliances, washers, dryers, TVs, that kind of stuff. And when people would come in, and if they had a foreign accent, I would always ask them where they were from. And so we could talk about their home country. And if they were from a communist country, I would always ask them, oh, before you leave, could you please tell me all the communist jokes that you know? Because they're really funny jokes. And one of the ones I heard was a guy said, oh, you know what? We have 2 channels on TV in Russia. Channel 1 is a KGB agent telling you what to think. On Channel 2 is a KGB agent telling you to change back to Channel 1. So I thought, hey, why not have our podcast called Channel 3? It's an alternative to the narrative.
So yeah, Channel 3 now is the option for you guys to let's talk about different things. We are a third option to talk about. I mean, of course, we have a lot of options now in the internet, but
it's not just us.
It's just not.
There's a lot of options out there now.
But it seems to be this analogy seems to be that is part of a reality because we probably believe in a bunch of channels that are part of channel 1 and 2, and well, I have to say that channel 3 ideas around, especially around the US, are growing a lot, right?
Yeah. One of the things I notice when I'm reading a paper or looking at other websites and different things is the headlines.
Hmm.
And it's not what they say, it's what they don't say. And I'm going to sprinkle some of those in from time to time because it's one of the things we're not getting. I'll give you an example. I'm flipping through the Wall Street Journal right now, and it says it's on U.S. News, page 82, as nuclear gains, its waste pile up. So it's obviously an anti nuclear power article. So that's what it's probably going to say. But what it doesn't say is the countries of France and China buy our nuclear waste because they reprocess it and put it right back into their reactors. So in a real sense, there is no such thing as nuclear waste. It's recyclable. An old nuclear engineer once told me, we were talking about, I brought up the subject of nuclear waste, and I said something about nuclear waste, and he just stopped me. He said, wait a minute, there's no such thing as nuclear waste. He said, if it's radioactive, it's fuel. And if you think you got to bury it because it's radioactive, then what you're doing is burying fuel. He said it's stupid.
As Chernobyl, right?
Chernobyl was actually Russian made, of course. And of course, they make the best stuff, right? The communists always make the best stuff. But anyhow, that's just the idea, is that.
Yeah, and because of course, if the main countries, they are always about the nuclear stuff, why other countries should just stop if everybody is sharing the same ideas, right? And so I was gonna ask you about this channel 3 on the last couple of years, because there's a lot of conservative now channels around, especially around the internet in the US. Of course, you watch Ben Shapiro. You have heard about Kirk, that is going to colleges to open students' minds on politics, on economics, on geopolitics around the world, actually, because a lot of people now, young people, is talking about geopolitics, not just the politics around the area or their own countries. And that is something that is amazed me too, because I've seen people 18 years old, 19 years old, talking about politics from different countries, not just our country, and which is very important. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's amazing to me too. I mean, when I first started in understanding or learning about these things, it was back in like 1977, and there was no third alternative. There was no alternative media in those days. There was no internet. And every city had like one or two newspapers, but it was like one newspaper. It was always, socialist.
Channel 1 and 2.
Yeah. You turn on TV. Now, there were three channels, but there might as well have been one. They were all saying the same thing, So it didn't make any sense. I always wondered about that. Why do they have three news networks? They all say exactly the same thing. They could save some money, just move in together, But I guess it was when the internet started. That's when it
started to change. Yeah, and now that you mention it, in Mexico in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and beginning of the 2000s, we only have two main TV networks. So yeah, I mean, it's still the same, and they both broadcast pretty much the same things. So so yeah, we have been having channel 1 and 2 all over. And as you know, in Mexico, there's no such a thing as a. We kind of have a conservative party, but we really don't. Um,
Right.
so, but but in the thing in the whole continent, in the whole American continent, is that the conservative movement is growing, especially starting in Argentina and Salvador.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that is something happening also in Peru, but I'm not sure if that is the case. But in Argentina and Salvador, the movement is growing a lot. And unfortunately, in Mexico, I think we are far from that. But after what happened in the U.S., uh, I'm very surprised by the comments on Mexican people. I'm talking about Donald Trump's comments. I mean, about the comments of Donald Trump, uh, because I remember back in his first running uh, in Mexico, we didn't really knew Donald Trump back in 2016 or 15. Of course, American people knew him from the 60s or 70s, right? But but in Mexico, he was not very popular back then, uh, and we didn't really thought he was going to win on his first run, and he was not very popular back then on his first run. But in the second, I was surprised how much attention and approval he had from Mexican people that knew that he was not going to be our president, but he was with we a lot of people said that it was going to be a really good. He was going to do a really good mission in the U.S. and is now doing something also good for our country, because like right now in he's all in our news every day now. And like the recent news that we have from him is that for some reason big uh, let's say big very heavy drug dealers that they were never gonna be caught, they were caught on the last month here in Mexico. So it turns out that our government actually can do things. Things that were never done before. So I'm pretty sure that if Donald Trump was never gonna be elected, that was never gonna happen in Mexico. So very heavy uh, drug lords were caught in the last 20 days, and so that's unbelievable. That means that government people can actually do things.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be another thing I'd like to bring up from time to time in our conversation is how ordinary folks can get involved in your local political parties and make, and start putting more conservative people into office, because that's what the parties are for. The parties are for nominating, endorsing, vetting, and getting people elected. And that's one of the things that is never talked about in the news, even on conservative channels. They never give you a step by step what you can actually do. It isn't enough to just think about what needs to be done. You actually have to you have to put people in office who will actually do it. Actions speak louder than words. Policy. You got to get if you really want to change policy, then you have to put good people in there who not only believe it but also will do it.
Correct.
That up from time to time.
Yes, I remember when you run for Congress. That was 2012 or 11, somewhere around that time, right?
Yeah, something like it. It was the state. legislature, not the federal. So it was more of a local legislature, yeah. For the
Yeah. And I remember back then I didn't understood very well what was the difference between the legislator and another different kinds of politics. Now that I do, I remember how big of a deal that was. I mean, running for Congress was such an important thing to do because how many rhinos there's in of course in the Republican Party, but also talking about Mexico, how many people that say they're gonna do things that they say that we trust them and they don't really do anything once they get elected, and how important congressmen are for actually do things, even more, I believe, even more than the executive politicians, because executives, they're going to execute the law, but the legislators, the congressmen, they do it. They
they,
they,
they make the
they made them, right?
see like take Trump for example. You did you watch that speech the other night?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of in the press in Mexico, they say it was the best speech that he ever have done in the.
It was
He was even better than the one he made last month, right?
it's probably it was really good. But anyway, if you remember, there were two people sitting behind him. The guy on the left was the vice president, J.D. Vance.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy on the right was Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
Speaker of the House in America is almost like a prime minister in other countries. Now, here in America, the Speaker of the House he's the one who leads the legislature because he has control of the spending.
Mm-hmm.
Like the leader in the Senate is very powerful as well, but the leader in the House of Representatives is even more powerful because they control the checkbook, the money.
Correct.
The president, although he's the most visible guy, he can't do anything that isn't legal. Like he can only follow the law. He can only enforce the law. And all the stuff that he's doing right now is stuff that is part of our law, part of the Constitution, part of the what they call the Federal Register, all those federal laws that Congress passes. So in a way, the leader of the House of Representatives is even more important than the president.
Correct.
But for some reason, he doesn't get the attention that the president does. He's kind of in the background. But people in the House, people in the Senate, people in the parties, the political parties, they understand. Because that's the whole reason we have political parties is you have people who have different interests and they join a side. And that's all a party is party literally means a side in a dispute. Like if you're a party to a lawsuit or a party to this or party to that, that just means you've taken a side. And so there are two political parties for a reason, because only one guy can be Speaker of the House. Only one guy can be the leader of the legislature. And so if they split their vote, they'll never get their guy in as Speaker. But they join together in coalitions and factions, and they form a single party so that they can have enough power to get their guy into the office of Speaker of the House. It's the whole idea. But most Americans, probably all over the world, is the same thing. Most people don't understand the power of the political parties themselves. And if you're allowed to join a party, then you can get control of your government back. You can get it back in the hands of the people. If the parties are open to the people, the grassroots, at the base, the citizens, then if you get all you and all your friends together, you can take the government back. But if you live in like a communist country where the party is closed, like you can't join a communist party in Cuba. You have to be recruited. They have to invite you in. And that's why it's almost always family and friends, stuff like that. That's why it goes from Castro to Castro's brother, and then same thing in North Korea. Went from one guy to his son, and now it's his son. It's a closed system. The citizens, the people at the bottom, they can't join. You cannot join the party. But if you're allowed to join, then you have then you can do something about it if you know how to do it, and it's easy. You just join the party, recruit people to run for office, get them elected. That's how it works.
Yeah, and the beauty about this is that it maybe in the last 10 years, maybe yeah after that, because I still remember when you ran for Congress. Uh, and as I said, I maybe back then I didn't understand very well what was going to happen. But after in the last 10 years, I learned that the beauty about the similarities between the US and Mexico, I'm talking about the structure, about how we are made in constitutions, in laws, in the division of powers, we're pretty much the same. So and I say, well, how come we are very different in the enforcement of laws, or how capable our politicians are because of our people? Because laws, we have a lot of laws. Pretty much we have the same laws. I mean, if we compare our constitution, they are they have a lot of similarities. The thing is that in Mexico, the government does not enforce anything. So, for instance, I live in the border for a lot of years, and my parents still live there. So we are people that live in the border. We compare each other with the U.S. a lot every time because we cross very frequently. And there's a typical joke between citizens from Mexico. They go to just shopping something, to go to Walmart in the other part of the land. Just cross and they have they're just driving. They have the seatbelt on because we are about to go to the United States, so we have to have our seatbelt on. And as soon as they get back, they just remove it, or they behave on the streets of the United States. We are not supposed to throw garbage to the window. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that in Mexico either. But they feel more comfortable. We are in Mexico. It's, so it's the same person in the different in the same kilometer, but divided by different enforcement in the same with the same laws, because we have the same laws. I mean, in Mexico, if you kill someone, you're supposed to go to jail as well. You're supposed to, right?
It's optional.
It's yeah. But turns out that the enforcement of law, or yeah, our judges are not. Yeah, we have different criteria when it comes to enforcement of laws. But that so because when you talk about the House of Representatives, the Congress, the division of powers, the president is not the guy who's supposed to just dictate everything. They have different powers. So it's the same thing here in Mexico, and also Mexican citizens, they believe that the president is a semi god, which is a mistake. A president of Mexico cannot do anything because they have to be supported by, but first of all, have to enforce something that is in the law as well as in the US. So yeah, we have the same bad information, we have the same everything, but in the end, the enforcement of, or how's it called? Yeah, the enforcement or the prosecution of the law is the main difference. And Rick, talking about again about Charlie Kirk, he's a guy. He's a very young guy. He's been a really good Trump supporter and on this campaign in the U.S. And he has been. I've been watching a lot of him on YouTube, and he was doing something that you always recommended me to do. He was going to the colleges, not high school. When you remember when you told me go and with your buddies in high school and ask them questions. Well, he did the same thing with people in college, but if he was asking political questions, and it was very important. He went viral with all his mission, and the name of his idea is the Turning Point, and turning USA or something like that.
Yeah, Turning Point USA.
Turning Point USA, right? And so tell me what you think about that, because that's an idea that I heard from you a decade ago, more than a decade ago.
Well, I'm really happy what Turning Point Action is wonderful, because like you said, he goes on and he just asks questions, and he gets these college students to think about what they're saying. You know, a lot of them they have like memorized things they've been told, and they sound like a broken record. They're not really thinking. They're just repeating like a parrot.
Correct.
And so he asks them questions to get them to think. And it's wonderful to see them start to snap out of it, to come out of their coma, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But recently, he started a new organization called Turning Point Action. And part of that organization, you should go on that website, Turning Point Action, check it out. And one of the things he does is he teaches people exactly what I'm talking about here, joining a political party. You should join your most conservative party, whatever it is in your country, and just start recruiting more people to join you. And once you get a majority in the party, then you'll to nominate candidates that think like you. And once you get them nominated, then the next step is to get them elected, of course. And then you're actually doing something. Then now you're actually being a good citizen instead of just watching the news. Like I equate it to like a sport. Like people playing football or what we call soccer. You got people up in the stands, the spectators, and they're screaming and yelling and cheering for their team. And they outnumber the people on the field by 1,000 to 1, 10,000 to 1. For every 10,000 people in the stands, there's one guy down on the field
saying, I'm going to do it better.
So what we need, and so that's what politics is kind of like that. There's so few people actually involved. Most people are just spectators. They think they care about politics, but they're not. They don't. They're spectators. And what we need to do is to walk down out of the bleachers and go out on the field and start getting your nose bloodied and your out.
And actually doing something.
Yeah, and that's how you'll know you're doing something, when you start losing teeth.
That is a big reality, yes.
I mean, yeah, it can be a rough sport at times. You're going to at least get called names, you know, but you just have to care enough about, well, in my case, freedom. You have to care enough about it to actually do something about it.
Yeah, that's a good point of view because in life, if you're gonna do enemies anyways, at least let's do it for a good reason, right?
Yeah, like you can still be a spectator, which that's the fun part of politics, just being a spectator. But actually going to a meeting once a month and then nominating candidates, I mean, somebody has to do that. And if you're not doing it, somebody else is. And that's how, like in my party, in the Republican Party here in America. That's how we get rhinos. We have a thing called Republican in name only. They call themselves Republicans, but in real life, they're actually Democrats. But they pretend to be a Republican so they can get elected in a Republican district. And that's going to continue until we get enough people in to the party to replace that person, to have a good person run against that rhino. So that's the difference you can make. You're basically just, you have a conservative party. Well, it's how you make a conservative party conservative.
Yeah, that is right because yeah, if we the good thing about this geopolitics is that Donald Trump is inspiring a lot of people around the world, not just Americans, to really go and say things very clearly. One of the things that he mentioned in his speech 2 days ago, and also in his first speech a month ago, was that there's only two genders, and there's enough of the wokeism, right? And I remember because I saw it on the Mexican news channel, and of course, I said, well, this is something that, of course, Donald Trump said. I want to hear the comments. I want to read the comments, and the comments were just applause for Mexican from Mexican people saying that applause. That's what we need in Mexico as well. We need a politician in Mexico that says the same thing. Those are the things that we are think about, but we don't say because we might get in trouble by saying some of those things, right?
Yes, someone will call you a name.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, as a child, I was easy. I was an easy target for the for the bullies. So I got called names a lot. So I got used to it. It don't, you know. But for for some people, somebody calls you a name. Be the first time anybody ever called you a name, and it hurts, and you shrivel up, back off, and they know that. They're really good at this, and they know us a lot better than we know ourselves. And the reason they keep doing it is because it keeps working. If you don't let it work on you, eventually they'll stop. They won't stop on the other people, but they'll stop on you. Where at least it won't bother you. Like Trump, they'll never stop calling Trump names. They'll never stop calling him names. But they're really not going after him. They're going after you. He's just the medium. They're going after you through him. So.
Yeah, that's I heard a very interesting analysis on Mexican news about Donald Trump and our former president Andres Manuel López Obrador, and they said they are pretty much the same. And I said, well, hold on. How can they be the same? One is a conservative and the other one is a socialist. And but I agree with the guy saying this because they use the same techniques for different reasons. And I say, well, they have a point because they were very good at it. Because but they have different visions, of course. This Lopez Obrador was a socialist, you know that, and even Donald Trump knew that, and he was always commenting on that. And our current president, Claudia, is also a socialist. But anyways, they were saying they have the same techniques, Donald Trump and Lopez Obrador. They don't care about what other people say.
Right.
And other thing is they're very clear about the ideas. So one of the things that I admire on Lopez Obrador, not that I admire because I support him, but I admire because he was clear on, he was always commenting that he was a socialist, and he was very proud of it, and he was very clear about that. He didn't care about the conservative people not voting for him. He said, I don't care. So just screw them, right? So that's the same thing that Donald Trump did. He didn't care about he didn't care about saying the things to please everybody. Because that's what most politicians want to do. They want to please everybody and they want the vote of everyone, of course. But when you are clear about something, like one of the things that press in Mexico do, and of course in the US too, is that they ask questions to the candidates to see if they are clear about their answers. And for example, abortion. Wow, if you ask any politician in Mexico about abortion, they start dancing around the question and they don't really say anything clear because they don't want to fall into anything to upset anyone.
Right.
So that's one of the things I admire about politicians. Even if I agree or not agree with them, at least they make my vote clear that I will either vote or not vote for them.
Yeah. There was I think it's how's it go? There's an expression about not caring about what other people think about you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's an expression. It used to go like this: life begins at 40. And I thought, well, why is that? Why do people say that life begins at 40? When you turn 40, for some reason, life finally begins. Why?
I'm 40.
Huh?
I'm 40. So
Well, normally what happens around that age is at that age, around there, not exactly, but around there, you no longer care what other people think about you. That's why life begins. Life begins when you no longer care what other people think of you because now you're free. Before, you were controlled by what other people think, but now you don't, and now you're free. That's why there used to be an expression. I think it was Churchill said this. He said, when you're 20 and you're not a socialist, you have no heart. If you're 40 and you're not a conservative, you have no brain. It's kind of a similar thing. Something magical happens around 40, you know.
that is right. I totally agree. Yeah, around 40. Yeah, because yes, it's something about that special age, and yeah, you kept me thinking. But yeah, I agree with you. I recently turned 40 on December, and I'm gonna be a dad again, as you know. And I started thinking, wow, I gotta do something about this because I gotta do something about the amount of information that I have right now because there's no more time to play around. right? There's let's start getting serious about things.
Yeah, like I go to our political party meetings once a month,
Hmm.
and everybody there is old. And everybody keeps saying, we got to get the young people in here. We got to get young people in here. And I say, it's impossible. They, they're not thinking about this stuff yet. They're not serious enough yet. It, you can't wait for them. You have to get the old people involved because they're the only ones who care enough. The young people. It's unfortunate. Now it's not true in every case. There's a lot of conservative young people, but not enough.
Not enough, correct.
So you can't wait for them to grow up. You know, you,
There's an author in Argentina. Maybe you have heard of him because he's a counselor or advisor of Javier Milei.
uh,
His name is Laje, Agustin Laje. He's an author. He's a and I read his book, one of his books, and I haven't read the latest of his books, which is Globalism, and is the other book that I read is Idiot Idiot Generation. It's called Idiot Generation, and it's very good. I don't know if there's an English version of it. I'm pretty sure it is. Idiot Generation, and talks about all these things that I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said that in old Greek, politicians had to be more than 50 years old, had to be, and the reason was because you have to accumulate a certain amount of years of experience to really run, or dictate, or to be in charge of something. You have to accumulate experience. You cannot be a with in a big charge at 20 or 25. And they say, well, in nowadays generation is pretty much the opposite. They like to just ignore what all people have to say, because younger people have to, maybe they apparently have better ideas.
the younger people.
I mean, that was the topic of the book, that in nowadays that's why generation are just so messed up, because they ignore all people ideas and they just obey young people because they seem to be wiser, right?
Well, there used to be an expression. I actually saw this sign in a window in a store one time. It said, "Hire a teenager while they still know everything." Young people think they know everything, and just ask them; they'll tell you.
Yeah, that is right.
But the older you get, the dumber you get.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is right. And yeah,
Like, what is it? The older I get, the more I find out my dad was right.
yeah, that was what I was about to say. Yeah, when you start saying my dad was right, it's like, oh man, now I'm getting mature. Finally, I'm 50.
Yeah, I think the expression goes, the older I get, the smarter my dad gets.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, because we all said in some part of our lives to our parents, what do you know? Right? Come on, mom. Come on.
Yeah,
What do you know?
yeah.
And and yeah, I see. You you stole the idea that I had. Yeah, I was about to say it, because yeah, I mean, when you realize that your parents were right, it's like, oh man.
Yeah, what's left for me? How can this be? We have no hope. There's no hope.
There's no hope.
Right.
Correct.
Oh my goodness. I remember one day Ronald Reagan, he was one of our presidents from back in the 80s. He was conservative. And he was giving a speech at a college or something. And when he was done, he was taking questions from the audience. And one young college student got up and said, "Oh, Mr. President, like, how can you relate to us young people? How is it possible for you to lead us young people to understand us? Because when you were our age, there was no radio, there was no television, there was none of, there was no, I don't know what else,
Technology, yeah.
big long list of technology." So when the student finally shut up, Reagan said, "You're right. And that's why we had to invent all those things for you." So they're not, old people aren't as dumb as you look. They invented all this stuff.
Right. That is right.
Yeah,
Yeah, they invented it so you can use them,
that's right.
so you can talk about them. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was talking to my dad about the iPhone or the iPads or everything. So he was the guy who invented all those, and he was born in 1955. So, as well as Bill Gates. Uh, so there were people from the 50s inventing something so people from 2010 can enjoy them,
That's right.
or 2020.
Yeah, look at all the people that tried to invent airplanes. They've been trying to invent airplanes for thousands of years. Even what was it? Who was it?
Da Vinci?
Yeah, Da Vinci. What was Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Donatello make up the team with one other fellow, Raphael.
Yeah. Yeah, every time you say that to well, you know what? Maybe the newest generation, they don't even know what the Ninja Turtles are. They don't even know that Ninja Turtles are 90s or 2000s. But yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, those artists are first. Of course, I met the Ninja Turtles before Leonardo da Vinci. But anyways, you were saying about the invention of the plane, right?
Yeah, that we didn't have a plane until 1903, right? My grandmother remembers in her neighborhood, they had heard that an airplane was going to fly over. So they had, the whole town had a big picnic. Nobody went to work. They all went to the picnic. And like, sure enough, this airplane flew over and everybody's cheering because none of them had ever seen an airplane before. And now it's so common, nobody looks up. No, you see, nobody sees it. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Oh, another airplane. Come on.
Yeah, look at those contrails, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Video calls are just very regular, and I was watching the movie from Stanley Kubrick, the 2001 Odyssey, and video calls were like the thing, right? On a tablet. Wow.
Yeah.
What a modern time. And so now it's just a regular thing.
Same with space travel. Nobody watches, very few people watch rocket launches. But back in the day, man, if there was going to be a rocket launch, everybody was glued to their television.
Yeah.
watching that rocket go up, everybody be cheering.
Electric cars. I remember when watching one Tesla was, wow, there goes an electric car. Now it's very much very common to see an electric car all around the city. And that happened in the last 10 years or in the last 5 years, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever get used to electric cars. I like the sound of that engine. Big, powerful engine. A muscle car.
Yeah, and the stick is going to be extinct very soon. So it's a species on an endangered extinct species, right?
What, a standard transmission?
Yeah, there's almost none.
They say that's the best way to keep your car from getting stolen is get a standard transmission, because the carjackers, they don't know how to drive a standard transmission.
Unless it's an old one.
Oh, an old carjacker?
Yeah, oh no, it's an automatic. No. I'd rather a standard transmission now.
I like to watch videos, the shorts, the little shorts.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them, they have somebody, they forget to put their car in park.
Yeah.
Like delivery drivers, they forget to put their truck in park. They deliver the package and they turn around and their truck's going down the road.
Yeah, those are, yeah, and that's part of the technology as well. Remember when we used to watch funny videos on TV that they were just hard to get because there was always no camera. So when you watch a funny video TV show, pretty much you were I mean the possibility of you watching the same video of repeatedly, it was like, that one I saw it last year, right? But now funny videos are happening every day and every moment, and there's a lot of cameras around.
Yeah.
Having a security camera was very uncommon just for rich people, right?
Yeah, that's the nice thing about rich people is they can afford to buy this stuff when it's very expensive. Like I remember when color TV came out. It was somewhere in the 50s. Like it was 54, 55, somewhere around there. There was a bar, down the street that got a color television. And everybody went down there to see it. It was like, wow, color TV. Wow. And we didn't have a color TV for like another 20 years because only super rich people could afford a color TV. And now everybody has a 65-inch color TV
on each room. Even in the bathroom.
Yeah, every room has one now.
It reminds me the scene of Back to the Future. Remember when Martin McFly went to his own house in the past? No, his mom's house, and he said, "How many TVs you have?" "We have two." And they say, "Yeah, right." back in the 50s. Yeah, and that reminds me sometimes when I'm driving and for very simple things like pressing the auto button on the window shield. No, I mean on the window just to go down is automatic, right? You don't have to go and do this.
Right.
Like in the old days. And I said, this is a technology invented maybe in the 80s, 90s, right? The automatic button. So it was the thing that was a new thing for rich people on cars in the 90s, I guess, because everybody has to roll the window. And I said, I'm a middle class citizen in Mexico. And I guess not even Henry Ford in his best day. He was probably the richest guy on his days,
Probably.
probably. And he never had access to this kind of technology.
Yeah, I remember one day I was discussing socialism versus freedom with somebody, and they said they want socialism because of all these really poor people in America. And I said, do you know a poor person? Do you really? And he goes, yeah, they live right over here. And I said, have you been to their house? Yeah. Do they have glass in the window? Yeah. Do they have a refrigerator? Do they have a stove? Do they have a telephone? And he goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I said, and how many televisions do they have? He said, oh, 2 or 3. And you're calling them poor? I mean, try going somewhere else in the world sometime. Go to Haiti, go to Cuba. Yeah, you'll find out what
Yeah.
poor is.
Even in Mexico, they say in Mexico, of course, there's poverty, but in Mexico, they say poor people don't die because of hunger. They might die about many other different things, but not hunger. I mean, there's a lot of food in here. So every country has a lot of richness that sometimes we have to look to other countries to really look for poverty.
To see how good you got it.
Uh-huh.
That's the other thing. We should be more thankful for what we have instead of complaining.
That is right. Yeah.
We got, and that's because of freedom. Freedom makes it so people can start a business, and you get more businesses, you get more competition, they make more stuff. They have to sell it at a fair price, or the competition will get all the business. So the quality goes up, the price goes down. It used to be people couldn't afford to save money. Now people can save. People have savings. Very few people had savings back when I was a kid. When the dad would die, there would be no savings left for his widow. Nothing. Or they might have an insurance policy, $1,000. Now, how long is that going to last? $1,000.
Wow.
So yeah, we got a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, and that's pretty much part of the decisions that we make with our politicians.
I was thinking about this the other day. Like, why is there still socialism? Poverty, real poverty, has been eliminated, not just here, but around the world. So why are they trying to sell us this fairy tale to try, we need socialism to lift people up out of poverty? Well, that has never happened anywhere. Like the most desperately poor country in the world back in the 50s was China.
Mm-hmm.
And the communist government of China had to introduce freedom, a little freedom, so that they could produce enough food so they could, so they wouldn't starve. And so even the communists know that freedom is where prosperity comes from. But yet they keep trying to sell us this phony baloney socialism that produces nothing but poverty and
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, and for some reason, a lot of countries believe that will be the answer, even though there's no country in which socialism has succeeded, right? I mean, socialism has succeeded. hasn't produced anything good for the people that voted for socialism.
Right. Just like what we were talking about earlier, like in Cuba,
Hmm.
free healthcare, except that there's no healthcare.
But it's free.
You know, it'd be a cool sign to get a sign that says socialism, the answer to prosperity.
Except there's not going to be a prosperity, but we are the answer.
No, they or socialism, the cure for prosperity.
We're going to cure that from that disease. And yeah, and when they get elected, they say, maybe you misunderstood the sign. We're going to cure prosperity. That's what we promised. And we are fulfilling our promise because we are getting rid of prosperity.
Yeah, even Lenin figured this out early on. As soon as the communists took over Russia, food production just plummeted. And he had to he started this thing called a 5-year plan. He called it the 5-year plan. And he was going to let the peasants own a certain amount of their land. And whatever they grew on that little part, they could sell it. It was their private. Like, let's say they had 50 acres. He would give 1 acre to the peasants. Say, whatever you grew on this one little square, this 1 acre, you can keep it. You can sell it. You can do whatever you want. And they produced more food on that 1 acre than they did the whole rest of the 50 acres. So even Lenin knew this. Even Lenin knew the power of freedom and private ownership.
Yeah, the thing is that socialism goes for the rich countries. They don't go for poor countries, right?
Well, they try to inflict it on everybody. You know, it's the most amazing fairy tale. It never dies. It's amazing. It's like, how do they get away with keep selling the same fairy tale over and over?
Yeah, because there's always people getting born every day, so they have to explain everything again.
Yeah.
And they might buy the lie.
Well, they pretty much control the colleges.
Mm-hmm.
You send your kid off to college, man, you're rolling a dice. Because they might come home with a Che Guevara t-shirt.
Which is capitalism, by the way.
That's right. Che Guevara made $1 million selling those t-shirts.
I saw this video. It was a spoof on Che Guevara getting like waking up in the middle of Times Square in New York and seeing people with the t-shirts on his name, and I said, "Wow, that's me. Yeah, I bought this t-shirt for $5.99. What? You bought the t-shirt? Yeah, it's all over, man. You're a rock star. You're selling a lot of t-shirts for good money." I said, "What?
Where's my percentage?
Where's my percentage, right?" Maybe capitalism was not that bad after all.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, he should have copyrighted it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should have copyrighted it, and he would have got a cut.
Maybe the copyright belongs to the Castro family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how come no one ever wears a Castro t-shirt?
Yeah. Or a Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah, how come nobody wears a Hitler T-shirt or a Stalin T-shirt or a Mao?
Yeah, there's always have to be someone dead. I bet in the times of Pancho Villa there was no one wearing his t-shirts.
Oh my goodness.
But anyways, well, it was a very good first episode of Channel 3. Maybe we should do it more often than once a year.
Yeah.
I'll keep asking you if you're available more oftenly uh, to keep talking about these kind of situations because I believe we after when we finish this, I'm gonna do these little clips, vertical clips to share with the 60-second clips to share with people, and I believe they're gonna like all these topics, and maybe we'll invite someone to join us.
Yeah, and have make I'd recommend for the audience to check out Charlie Kirk's Turning Point Action
Yeah,
and start looking into what it takes to get involved.
that will be amazing. That will be amazing. And after when we finish this transmission, I'm gonna tell you something very important that I heard before we say goodbye, because I think that's something that will interest you about the Republican Party.
Okay.
All right, Rick. Well, let me just finish this transmission, this podcast, and let's see each other on the next time.
All right, Admiral.
All right. Do not disconnect. I'll see you in a bit.